Rocking with the Christmas themed stuff today. Expect more Christmas music ahead because we're getting towards Christmas time here and the holiday season just in general. So happy holidays. Am I allowed to say that now? It's the 7th of December. I think we're in legal territory there. All right, guys. Interesting stuff going on this afternoon in the weather department. Some new model runs rolling in. Giving things a little bit of a different look in terms of potential snow as we head into your day. Well, really your nighttime hours of Friday and your daytime hours of Saturday. Like first half of Saturday morning mostly, maybe lingering into the Saturday afternoon. Depends on which model you like. And we're getting a lot of different signals from all the models that came in this morning and then into the afternoon as well. Just a completely different look from when I hit work this morning at 3 a.m. to the model that is just come in and is still rolling as we speak. It's giving us a different look for Friday. That, for snow lovers, might be a very good thing as long as it's right. That's the question, is which model's giving us the right look. I'll show you everything I mean. Let's get to it. Let's start off with, we'll keep things on a lighthearted note. Let's start off with what's going on the slopes. How about that? Here are some of the latest, webcams from around some of the mountains. This is WISP, which I believe is in northern Maryland, starting to blow snow. You see all the snow blowers. That's a live video. They're whipping around again. Not a whole lot of natural snow, if any, has fallen up there since the warm-up that we went through over the last week. But now that temperature's finally getting cold again, they're really starting to blow snow, and they're certainly trying to get the trails open. Now, Seven Springs, I know, is open, and they've been blowing snow constantly. And you can see the mist on the mountains up there. They're still blowing snow. And over in Snowshoe, where one of my Facebook followers told me that they were heading later on this weekend. Snowshoe's been blowing snow, and I love the way they do their little live cams in Snowshoe. You can see the skiers going down the hill there. They're rocking, they're rolling, snow is a-blowing. It's 23 degrees and overnight lows in the low teens. They'll be blowing snow all weekend. So as I told her, let's see. Ooh, I just got a message. Let's see. Can you turn up your volume? I have mine all the way up and I can barely hear you. All right, let's see. I can turn up my volume. Let's do it. Turning it up. Let me make sure that everybody can hear me. Okay. Check. All right, hopefully I got my volume cranked up now. I got to turn it down a little bit, in fact. Hopefully, let me know if you can't hear me still. Hopefully I'm coming through okay. I'll also adjust the mic a little bit and put it a little higher. There we go. All right, check 1 2. Hopefully that's coming in a little clearer for everybody that's watching. All right, let's get to, I guess the one cam that's Liberty is the one that's lacking right now. Ski Liberty is the ones that are not blowing snow yet, but I believe it's cold enough there, so I'm surprised they're not blowing snow yet. Again, the best of all the web resorts I look through, looks like Snowshoe's the one doing the most with the snowmaking, and it looks like they have the most, perfect, Better Mike, thank you. It looks like they have the most trails open right now in Snowshoe, so I guess if you're looking for a place to go this weekend, maybe take on the slopes, Snowshoe's the place to go. All right, let's roll on over and we'll start talking snow or snow potential because as I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, some interesting things happened with the modeling coming in this afternoon, which is going to make my job and it's going to make Tucker's job really difficult here as we roll through the next 24 hours to see exactly what's going to happen. Players are this. You got you can kind of see it going on there. We're zoomed in here, so forgive my big controls up north there. But you got cold air coming in from the north and west. It's running into what is a warm southwest flow. It's not warm per se, but it's warm enough that you're picking moisture off the Gulf and you're throwing it up in this general direction. You also have that front that blew through here just the other day that stalled off the coastline. That's a recipe to spin up a storm. So that's kind of the players in play here. And new models are again rolling in. They run not constantly, but 4 times a day from this one, 4 times a day from the American, twice a day from the European. Latest, this is called the NAM, North American model, rolled in a couple of hours ago. And first kind of hint that, maybe we have to adjust the forecast a little bit here in D.C. Because know this, there's your storm right there. It's the one that's going to develop along the front, and it's going to move northward. Now this, compared to the other runs, this one trended a little bit farther to the west, and it's coming far enough west now that it's showing come Saturday morning here in D.C., more so than Friday night, Now it's trying to squeeze out a little bit of light snow here in Washington, D.C. I'll discuss the pros, I'll discuss the cons with it, whether or not I think it's believable. That's not a bad spot for a storm. It has trended, and in fact, we can look at that. If I go down here, I got to give a shout out to all the websites I use, by the way. This is Tropical Tidbits. If you want to go through weather models and you know how to navigate the menus and look for what you want to look for, you can check out tropicaltidbits.com and look at it. I'll also be showing some stuff from Pivotal Weather and Storm Vista and weather.us. Again, all free little model sites that you can run onto and check these out yourself if you need to. But since I'm showing them here, I want to give them some love. All right, moving on to what's going on Friday and Saturday. Again, let's go back. I like to usually compare to the zero. So when I got in this morning, same time frame, Saturday morning, much weaker storm off the coastline there, a little farther east off the coastline, and you were only getting your snow into like southern Maryland, Eastern Shore type areas. When I come in, I look at the forecast, I write it, and then we do it on air. Since then, we've had 2 runs. We've had that run came in mid-morning, and then we had the newest one that just came in recently. Look at that eastward trend. So again, that was this morning when I popped in, and now this is just before I'm about to leave. That's what we see. So notice the eastward trend there in what the models are doing. And you can kind of see, watch this feature up here. I'll put that red box right there. Watch that feature with the snow. See how 2 runs ago it was a little bit stronger, that one up there. See how there's an area low pressure with a sign that says 10,003 in it, which is the strength of that low pressure. See how it's not there anymore. Possibly a little bit of an energy transfer going on. Maybe that low is feeding into this low a little bit. It happens. Not 120% sure that's what's going on, but that's one potential reason why we might be starting to get a stronger low down here. And let me clear that off. Stronger low down here. And the stronger this low gets, the more precip, rain and or snow, depending on temperatures, is going to try and get thrown back to the northwest side of this thing. So we are certainly in the sweet spot, and if this was an ideal situation, we could have a blockbuster storm, but the problem is all the pieces aren't coming together exactly right for that. But the question now for us is, are they going to come together exactly right that we see snow at all during the late night hours of Friday, overnight, early morning, into potentially the afternoon hours of Saturday? We'll see. Again, this was kind of one run of one model here, and we have several other ones to look at. Now, got to stress this. I'm about to show some snowfall maps. I don't necessarily buy what they're preaching, but we'll talk about why, if I like it, or if I don't. We'll talk about why I do and don't here real quick. So let's get back to it. I just wanted to kind of throw out this disclaimer: don't believe everything you see, kind of thing. Things are going to change and things are going to need to be adjusted. So again, this was the North American model. What this model says is that maybe some snow starts in southern Maryland late Friday night into Saturday morning. That's 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. It has light snow even in D.C., and then things wind down into Saturday afternoon, but maybe lingering a little later for southern Maryland, Eastern Shore there through the daytime hours of Saturday. This is what it gave us in terms of total snowfall here. It's a little small. This is from Pivotal Weather, one of the sites I was telling you about just a second ago. I'll zoom in here a little bit, but I'll have to zoom back out in just a minute. Hard to read, but generally it's saying an inch of snow in D.C., just raw model output. It's saying 6 inches of snow in southern Maryland, but here's your problem. Know this right here, and let me take my picture off for just a second. This is accumulated snowfall, 10 to 1 inch ratio. What does that mean? That means for every inch of liquid that comes down, it's going to show 10 inches of snow. So that's a typical ratio of snowfall coming down. That's a fact of life, is that a 10 to 1 ratio is something we use a lot in weather, but it doesn't always work, and this would be a case where it doesn't always work because temperatures are very marginal. So what you're going to get is more sleet mixing in, you're going to get some rain mixing in at times, and you're going to get the heavier snow, which compacts more, and you're also going to get some melting on contact. So you're not going to have a 10 to 1 ratio. You're probably going to have like a 4 to 1 ratio. So your 1.1 inches of snow or 1.0 inches of snow that fell probably is down to like 0.1 or 0.2. I'm not concerned about accumulating snow on the roadways. I'm really not. It's too early. Temperatures are too marginal. We didn't reach below freezing last night. We're going to be near 50 this afternoon. In downtown DC, we won't do freezing tonight, and we won't do freezing tomorrow afternoon. We're going to be cold. We're going to have some cloud cover. 43 degrees is the daytime high tomorrow, but that's still a little too warm to get anything sticking to the roadways. The question in my mind, in Tucker's mind, in every meteorologist's mind that's watching these runs come in, is how much of this stuff can we get sticking on the grass, if any? As of this moment, I'm skeptical that we're going to have a whole lot sticking to the grass locally. I think Southern Maryland, Charles County, St. Mary's County, Calvert County, Southern Calvert County, Eastern Shore could do a dusting to 1 inch or 2. Even this number out here in Salisbury, 7.4 inches of snow, is extreme, in my opinion. Again, 10-to-1 ratios, and they're going to do, you'll see it in a minute when I show precip, they're going to do a decent amount of mixing out there that's going to knock those snowfall totals down. So we're not looking at a blizzard here by any stretch of the words. Again, the main argument we're debating here is whether or not we're going to get snow here in DC. And then if we are going to get snow, is it going to accumulate at all? I think the first answer is 60% yes, I think we could do some snow, but it's not a definite yes. Again, the models have been back and forth with this daggone thing over the past 48 hours, and it's driven me nuts. So it's back now. Will it go away later? We'll kind of have to wait and see. Anyway, that was the new run of the NAM. Here's kind of another problem I have with it. I mentioned that we're going to do a mixing, and here's why we're going to do some mixing and why I think you're going to have trouble sticking is because if the model is absolutely correct, it's even showing temperatures above freezing around DC, Southern Maryland, 33, 34 degrees when it's snowing. That is 12Z, which is 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. Yes, the model shows snow then, but the model also has above freezing temperatures, DC, Baltimore, South, and East. You're going to have trouble sticking snow down if you are not freezing or below on the surface. But you know, the model's not perfect. You'll get pockets here and there where temperatures will reach below freezing, but it's that shade of blue where I'm drawing the red line. North and west of there is where your below freezing temperatures are, but the storm's too far off the coast right now, the way things look, to get the precip that far back north and west. So they're colder, but they don't get the snow. Question is, I-95 corridor, do we get snow? Chances are increasing down Southern Maryland, northern neck of Virginia, St. Mary's County, Charles County, Calvert County, that you see a little bit of snow as we head into the east. More proof that this has the potential to actually happen. Here's the latest run of the American model, rolled in literally 15 minutes ago, and it's still running as we speak. It's not all the way through. Rolling through, this is now out to, it's a little slower than it was before. So we've kind of been preaching Friday night into Saturday. We may have to change that as more Friday's dry, Saturday morning has the better chance of getting the snow in here kind of thing. We'll see. Let me take this away real quick. We'll roll it on through. Watch, this is now into 7 a.m. Saturday morning. The new run of the American is trying to squeeze a little bit of snow into DC. There's your storm system getting its act together just off the coastline. And your stalled out front is kind of doing that kind of thing, and the area low pressure is going to try and ride along it. Rolling out farther, and again, these are things that I start to question as a forecaster. That's now 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. It's still showing light snow across the I-95 corridor out of the new run of the GFS. How has this changed from when I got in here this morning? Let's back it up. This was same time last run, which ran mid-morning, and this was the run that ran late last night. So the 0Z, what we call the 0Z forecast, which came in 11:30 last night, had very little, and the new one has some snow around the region. Now, and this is going to get complicated, I trust what are called balloon runs. This run is not a balloon run. These are where the weather people launch their weather balloons. They go up, they take observations. Those get pushed into the model. I trust the balloon runs. I don't trust the non-balloon runs. The 0Z is a balloon run. That came in last night, 11:30. It's kind of the first balloon run of the day. 6Z is not. Kind of a new run based off old data kind of thing. 12Z is now what I would call a semi-balloon run. And the problem with this is that over Alaska, due to budget cuts, they haven't been launching balloons as 12Z. And the strength of the ridge over Alaska is key to how much cold air is going to make it down into this region. A little skeptical on the 12Z, less so than the 6Z, but I can't ignore the trend. We're now 24 to 36 hours away from snow potentially falling in the DC region. I can't ignore this, but I am still skeptical. I need to see this echoed. I need to see this more consistent. It's been doing this back and forth thing the past several days. I mean, boom, boom, there it is. It's back, it's forth. Let's see if I can go back even farther and show you another run where it was in. Let's see, I don't know how far back the history goes here. We're now pretty far back. So you'll just have to kind of trust me that we had several runs that were trying to bring it in. This is the most recent. We'll see. All right, how much snow is that run giving us? Again, that one's more of a Saturday morning snow. That's giving us 1 to 2 inches, but same deal. Watch your ratios. That's a 10 to 1 ratio. That's not going to happen. And the reason that's not going to happen is because temperatures are not that ideal 10 to 1 level. It's not a perfect cold air storm. You're going to mix out and you're going to get some lower ratios. And when you're dealing with temperatures out of the American model, they're generally above freezing. I mean, let me take this away. You can run the, I'll run the pointer over. You'll see 35 degrees in DC, 34 even the Frederick, and you don't have a lot of cold air. This is when it was showing some steady snow. This was the afternoon. Your freezing line's way back there north and west through Pennsylvania, through Ohio. So you're going to have surface cold air problems, and that's why I think whatever falls is going to have a very tough time sticking. My opinion right now, the only place you're going to be able to stick not a decent amount, but at least get some stickage going is where it's heavy enough, and that might be Southern Maryland and Eastern Shore. Again, on my level of concern for this event, because I don't want to underplay the risk of snow, but at the same time I don't want to overplay the risk of snow, this is like a 2 out of 10 on my, as far as coastal storms go, this is like a 2 out of 10 on my concern scale because of marginal temperatures. We've been warm the past several days. Storm's not too terribly well organized, and it's, the position of it is marginal, and how far west the precip comes is marginal. Here's the deal. Here's the European side of things, and I've told you many times, Europeans are most trustworthy model. The afternoon run of the European has not come in yet. That will come in about 2 hours. It will start running in about 2 hours. This was what it had this morning when I got here. Look how farther south and east that precip line is, and it's mixing a lot. It's showing green, but snow does mix in at times. But look how much farther, I mean, compare these two images. Let's see if I can just do it here, because it'll be easier if I can switch back and forth. Instead of going with the Euro, let's do the US. Let's see if it just snaps. Yeah, so there's the new, that's the, make sure that's it. Yeah, so that's the new run of the GFS. Look at the snow shield up to the I-95 corridor. And this was the latest run of the European in the meantime. Did not get that snow shield nearly as far north and west. So which model do you like? Good question. I need to see the new European. Are you getting snow, Mike? What's up? No, we'll see, Kathy. We'll see. Slow and steady wins the race here. I'm still a little skeptical. I need to see more runs, and I need to see this afternoon run of the European. If the afternoon run, which again runs in 2 hours of this European model, moves the rain-snow line farther north and west, then I think we're in business. I don't know how to draw a thumbs up, but I suppose it would look like that, right? Thumbs up. That's what I just tried to draw. Miserable, I know. I need to see that afternoon run, otherwise I don't trust it. Even the European, your freezing line is north and west of town. That's that blue. Where the green goes to blue, that's your freezing line. So that means even if snow falls down here, it's going to have trouble sticking unless it falls at a rapid enough rate that it can overcome the melting that the ground will do from the ground being slightly above freezing. How much snow did the European put down? In my opinion, more reasonable totals. It's only got ½ an inch of snow down here across the eastern shore. To compare that, remember what the GFS has, 6-7 inches of snow down there, while the European has ½ an inch of snow. So that's the type of extremes we're talking about here. Again, which model's right, which model's wrong? I would do at this point, if I was forced, if someone put a gun to my head and said, which model's going to be right, which model's going to be wrong, I would kind of split the difference and lean slightly towards the European. Could there be more than a half inch of snow? Sure, I think someone's going to squeeze out a couple inches, an inch or two of snow on the eastern shore with this. I think southern Maryland, you could get some grassy spots, isolated areas up to an inch of snow on the grass, not so much on the roads. I'm skeptical to whether or not we can even get a dusting on the roads. Maybe your really back road, middle of nowhere roads where no one travels throughout the day, but your main roads aren't going to suffer from this. And then around DC, I think we see flakes, but stickage is the question. How much stickage? I'm skeptical that we're doing any stickage at all here locally. Other areas of concern I have, even from this latest run, this was the North American model. We look for lines. These certain dashed lines in here are what we call thicknesses. We look for a certain thickness for snow. We look for what's called the 540 line, and that 540 line is right there. So it's a little north and west. I believe that's the 540 line. See, sometimes it's not painted on there, so I cannot remember off the top of my head. If it's that one down south, then we're cooking with a little bit more gas. But I think it's the one up near I-95, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do to try and figure it out. So I'm going to back this up and see if we got. Okay, so I'm right. It is this. So there's the snow coming in during the morning hours. That's 15Z. That's 10 a.m. on Saturday. That 540 thickness is kind of riding up and down the I-95 corridor. You're a little too thick down here in southern Maryland, so you're probably still mixing. Your 0850, which is how cold it is above our heads. If you're above this line, you can technically do snow, but you got to do the right thickness. We don't have that right now according to this run of the North American model. So basically what I'm saying is it may not be all snow down here. It may be a decent amount of mixing. Your best chance of snow, believe it or not, or an all-snow event is up here closer to DC. But the problem with that is by then it's so light because you're so far away from this center low pressure. You're getting precip thrown back north and west, but there's a limit to how far back north and west you can make. And I'll talk about that kind of starting right now. Upper levels are everything. If you watched every now and then, yeah, Kathy, what's up? If you watch every now and then, I always talk about the upper levels. We're looking at atmospheric energy here, and the question is which model's getting the upper levels right, because whichever model's getting the upper levels right is the one that's is what's going to happen. The European did not have much snow here. This is the European kind of look at the upper levels on Saturday afternoon. You do have an upper level trough swinging through. You got an upper level low trying to develop, and you're what you call positively tilted with this trough, which is not the best for getting snow too far back north and west, and it's not the best for sucking that storm moisture back to the north and west. Again, this was the latest run we have. I want you to notice this in particular. See where the strongest energy is kind of down here at the Gulf, and see the weaker shade of yellow kind of up there. Energy's there, but it's much weaker here on the European. Notice the difference, and I'll click here. That's the GFS, same time. European, American, European, American, European, American. What's different? Number one, this trough is trying to go, let me clear that off. Number one difference. That trough is trying to go neutral. I don't think it's quite there yet, but it's trying to go neutral. If you're swinging that trough, you're going to try and pull that storm back. Difference number two. That energy is a lot more strung out and strong here across Carolina and Virginia versus where it was before. See the difference? Versus where it was in the Euro. See the difference? It's all down here, Gulf Coast there. It's much more strung out and a little bit stronger up through the Carolinas as we head through the GFS kind of, which is the American model view of things. Stronger steering low, stronger steering piece, which is that when I say steering piece, I mean this guy back here is what's going to steer the storm out in front of it. If you're stronger, if you are indeed stronger with this piece of energy out here, then yes, you could grab that storm and you could throw it a little bit farther west. That westward trend we saw in the last few models could continue a bit. And then we're cooking with gas in terms of snow falling here in DC. Here's a different look at the past couple of models we've had here on the American side of things. This was the morning model. When I got here, generally speaking, your limit to how far back west you can throw the snow is that line of energy right there. See that streak of red? You're not going to get snow going through there. So your storm's kind of off the coastline right here. It's trying to throw some moisture back. It would get back to that line. So it would kind of cut it off just before DC in the morning run of the American model. You switch to the afternoon run, look what happened. Again, morning, afternoon, morning, afternoon, morning, afternoon. You've pulled that back. You've strengthened this piece a little bit. You've done a little bit more tilt. Let's go back and forth before again. A little bit more of a neutral, just ever so slightly, you're tilting that upper trough just a little bit. And because that piece is a little stronger, a little more neutral, tilted-ish, I'm still kind of skeptical as to whether or not it's doing this, or whether or not it's doing that, which is still a positive tilt. Regardless, this piece as a whole is stronger, so you're trying to tilt things back around the northern side of it. So notice how that area red is now west of DC. That little tiny difference is what makes the difference of whether or not DC gets snow. So old run, no snow. New run, snow. See that little difference in how things moved? North American model, little more troublesome in terms of it looks a little more like the European with that energy ball down there. Remember, I know it's a different look, but there's your European. There's the big ball of energy kind of down there in the Gulf. But it does have a lot of little pieces of energy kind of strung out around here that this guy out here is tapping into to try and get that snow back north and west of town. I'm having trouble here, that's for sure, because I do not, and I have been burned 110% of the time before if I vote against the European model. European model, again, does not get the snow all the way back here. European model keeps it south and keeps it east and does a ton of mixing as opposed to an all-snow event because of temperature issues. There you are. You're all above freezing down there. And you don't accumulate much, but you do see flakes. American side of things says, yeah, we're going to see flakes even here in D.C. In fact, it may be a period, several hours, of light snow Saturday morning. Which one's right, which one's wrong? I don't know. That's just me being honest. I want to see the afternoon run of the European. Again, it's 11:40. That starts in about 2 hours. If we get that afternoon run of the European cooking with gas, then we're cooking with gas. And forecast tomorrow is going to be light snow on Saturday morning. More Saturday morning than Friday night, it looks like, more and more. The timing is at least right, and the cold air is there. Let's take this... or not too far off is kind of what I mean by there. Let's take this model right here. I'll change, we'll talk temps. This is the North American model on Saturday morning. Again, it's not too, that's Saturday afternoon. Let me back it off to Saturday morning because that would be our best chance of accumulating anything. It's 10 a.m., that's 7 a.m. The cold, the freezing line is there. It's north and west. It's not so far away. If you can strengthen that storm, which based on the temperature profile here is probably right in there somewhere. If you can get that storm a little stronger, you're going to increase the northwest flow around it, or the northeast flow around it, which means the winds on this side of it are going to turn out of the north and west, and they'll try and pull that cold a little farther south and a little farther east. You need that to happen if you want accumulating snows here on Saturday morning. Moving beyond Friday now. So again, Friday, watch out for updates tonight and tomorrow. That's kind of the best I can say. At this point, can't guarantee anything, can't say it won't snow. But at this point, I can't say it's definitely going to snow. And I can even say less how much we could potentially get. Although the odds are considerably high that it's going to be less than an inch of snow. And that would be like a roof. Again, I'm skeptical that we can get things to stick given how warm we've been, given how warm ground temperatures currently are. Moving beyond Friday into Saturday now, still a clipper system coming down. It's losing a little bit of a gusto because that storm is robbing it a little bit of its energy. Still going to be the chance. Sunday's going to be windy here, especially in the morning hours. It's going to be pretty windy. So wind chill values in the teens, without a doubt, in my mind. You're going to get those on Sunday morning. Clipper comes through during the early morning hours. You could squeak out a flurry or a snow shower around sunrise. Not concerned about accumulation with that. It doesn't have the same components that the coastal storm does. It wouldn't snow as long. so it'd be much harder to get anything to stick. Only exception would be the mountains north and west. Your ski resorts will do a couple inches of snow thanks to that clipper. But what that clipper is really going to do more than anything is bring a cold front through that's going to reinforce the cold air throughout the day on Sunday. Sunday is going to be the coldest day of the next 5. And then as we head into next week, visit from the polar vortex next Tuesday, Wednesday, is going to make Wednesday probably the coldest day of next week. Speaking of next week, next system comes down, Clipper system comes down right there as we head through the day on Monday into Tuesday. What will that do? Good question. There it is. It tries to get its act together, and I'll show you why in just a second. That could potentially, even though it's not showing much right now, that could potentially bring us a period of snow shower activity as we head into the late evening hours and morning hours of Tuesday and Wednesday. So late evening hours of Tuesday, early morning hours of Wednesday, if that storm tracks far enough south. Right now on that northern track, it's not going to do too much, but let's upper level it, because that's what you got to watch here when you're forecasting these things. Here comes that piece. That's the piece that's going to make your clipper. That's the piece that's the cold air coming down. You need this to stay out in front, and you need this to dive bomb south more than come flat across like that. Let's roll it on through, getting out, getting out, getting out. Again, it just kind of falls apart a little bit. Your storm piece is out there. You got another weak little piece down there that's worth watching, and you got your main kind of steering piece way back there. Positive trough would quickly push that storm out on Tuesday. We'll continue to roll forward, flow forward. This interests me a little bit. If you want the potential for a better storm here in DC, here's your piece that you need to be stronger. You got a little piece of energy out in front of the leading trough right there. Similar setup to kind of what's going on Friday here. We got to get the front through here on Tuesday. It's got to stall a little bit. We got to develop another storm using that ball of energy, and we have to have that trough, which is positively tilted right now. We got to have that go negative. Otherwise, it'll kick any potential for a storm. So I would absolutely be watching next Tuesday night into Wednesday for the potential for the next chance of something. Still don't know what that something will be. All right, so that's all I have. Again, new models coming in, showing some light snow for DC, mostly Saturday morning as opposed to Friday night. We'll watch it. The question is, how far west is that snow line going to come? Are the new models right, or is, as we roll through the evening and the new models coming in later, is that rain snow line going to be pushed back farther to the south and east? I will say this, of all the models, the European, besides being my personal favorite and the best weather model in the world, it is, and I'm not just saying that because it's my favorite model, I'm saying that because statistically it's the best model in the world. It has been consistent with keeping that rain and snow farther south and east than DC. We have not had very many runs of the European get snow into DC over the past few days, and I think I can run that back real quick and just kind of show you that. I believe, let's see, most recent forecast. So that was the 0Z from today. That was the one from, this was the afternoon run from yesterday. You see how far away it is. Let's see if I can go back another day here. So that was the debut. That was yesterday's afternoon run. Or I'm sorry, that was the 5th afternoon run. Now I'm all confused. 0Z on the 5th, which is the morning run on Tuesday. And then if we go to the afternoon run on Tuesday, that was the afternoon run on Tuesday. So you see that over the past couple of days, the European has been pretty daggone consistent with keeping that snow off to the west of town. And even if we go before that, I mean, let me try and go back to the 4th. That was the morning run on the 4th. You see it's almost in the same spot. And then, let's see, the afternoon run on the 4th looked like this. And it's gone on that. So over the past few days, again, it's been a struggle for the European to get it anywhere close to what the American is currently showing with a period of light snow here in DC Saturday morning. Let's watch the afternoon. I will tweet it out, Mike T. Fox 5. I will put it on Facebook, Mike Thomas Fox 5 on Facebook after the afternoon run of the European comes in today. We'll see what we're dealing with. We'll see if we're cooking with gas or if this thing ends up being a little bit of a bust. We'll see. Regardless of whether or not it does snow or doesn't snow, I am not at this time anticipating a lot of accumulation. You would have to really blow this thing up, which would be a surprise because we don't have any models blowing it up right now. You would really have to strengthen that storm significantly here and get it closer to the coastline if you want to roll with some bigger snow time accumulations, because you need a rapid snowfall rate to overcome the surface temperatures, which are still pretty warm. All right, I've been talking too long again. Man, it's almost 11:50. I was supposed to wrap up 20 minutes ago. That's how long I've been talking. Again, you have any questions, you can tweet me. You have any questions, you can put me on Facebook and find me, and I will answer them as best I can. And again, I will do another update later on this afternoon. Mike Thomas, Fox 5 on Facebook one more time. Mike T, Fox 5 on Twitter. That's all I have for the weather right now. We'll do another update video probably tonight on my Facebook page because I'm a half day tomorrow, so I'm not here, and I'm not here on Monday either. But we'll keep you updated. I'll be doing, even though I'm off, I'll be doing images and tweeting and all that stuff. So stay tuned. All right, that's all I have for the weather. I'm done. I'm going to shut up now because they want me to shut up. Put the Christmas music back on. We'll bring in Molly. She will have the latest news coming up in just a minute. All right, I'll leave you with a live look at, oh, they took all my White House shots away. I'll put a live look at, how about, no, not that. We'll go inside. It looks like the Senate room. That has nothing to do with the weather. But I'm going to guess that Molly's, whatever's going on in there, Molly's going to bring it up. All right, Molly's back in just a second.
I felt that we had entered an important moment in the history of this country. We were finally beginning to listen to women about the ways in which men's actions affect them. The moment was long overdue. I was excited for that conversation and hopeful that it would result in real change that made life better for women all across the country and in every part of our society. Then the conversation turned to me. Over the last few weeks, a number of women have come forward to talk about how they felt my actions had affected them. I was shocked. I was upset. But in responding to their claims, I also wanted to be respectful of that broader conversation, because all women deserve to be heard and their experiences taken seriously. I think that was the right thing to do. I also think it gave some people the false impression that I was admitting to doing things that, in fact, I haven't done. Some of the allegations against me are simply not true. Others I remember very differently. I said at the outset that the Ethics Committee was the right venue for these allegations to be heard and investigated and evaluated on their merits, that I was prepared to cooperate fully, and that I was confident in the outcome. You know, an important part of the conversation we've been having the last few months has been about how men abuse their power and privilege to hurt women. I am proud that during my time in the Senate, I have used my power to be a champion of women, and that I have earned a reputation as someone who respects the women I work alongside every day. I know there's been a very different picture of me painted over the last few weeks, but I know who I really am. Serving in the United States Senate has been the great honor of my life. I know in my heart that nothing I have done as a senator, nothing, has brought this honor on this institution. And I am confident that the Ethics Committee would agree. Nevertheless, today I am announcing that in the coming weeks, I will be resigning as a member of the United States Senate. I, of all people, am aware that there is some irony in the fact that I am leaving while a man who has bragged on tape about his history of sexual assault sits in the Oval Office, and a man who has repeatedly preyed on young girls campaigns for the Senate with the full support of his party. But this decision is not about me. It's about the people of Minnesota. It's become clear that I can't both pursue the Ethics Committee process and at the same time remain an effective senator for them. Let me be clear. I may be resigning my seat, but I am not giving up my voice. I will continue to stand up for the things I believe in as a citizen and as an activist. But Minnesotans deserve a senator who can focus with all her energy on addressing the challenges they face every day. There is a big part of me that will always regret having to walk away from this job with so much work left to be done. But I have faith that the work will continue because I have faith in the people who have helped me do it. I have faith in the dedicated, funny, selfless, brilliant young men and women on my staff. They have so much more to contribute to our country. And I hope that, as disappointed as they may feel today, everyone who has worked for me knows how much I admire and respect them. I have faith in my colleagues, especially my senior senator, Amy Klobuchar. I would not have been able to do this job without her guidance and wisdom. And I have faith, or at least hope, that members of this Senate will find the political courage necessary to keep asking the tough questions, hold this administration accountable, and stand up for the truth. I have faith in the activists who organized to help me win my first campaign and who have kept on organizing to help fight for the people who needed us. Kids facing bullying, seniors worried about the price of prescription drugs, Native Americans who have been overlooked for far too long, working people who have been taking it on the chin for a generation, everyone in the middle class, and everyone aspiring to join it. I have faith in the proud legacy of progressive advocacy that I have had the privilege to be a part of. I think I've probably repeated these words 10,000 times over the years. Paul Wellstone's famous quote, "The future belongs to those who are passionate and work hard." It's still true. It will always be true. And most of all, I have faith in Minnesota. A big part of this job is going around the state and listening to what people need from Washington. But more often than not, when I'm home, I am blown away by how much Minnesota has to offer the entire country and the entire world. The people I've had the honor of representing are brilliant and creative and hardworking, and whoever holds this seat next will inherit the challenge I've enjoyed for the last 8.5 years, being as good as the people you serve. This has been a tough few weeks for me, but I am a very, very lucky man. I have a beautiful, healthy family that I love and that loves me very much. I'm going to be just fine. I'd just like to end with one last thing. I did not grow up wanting to be a politician. I came to this relatively late in life. I had to learn a lot on the fly. It wasn't easy and it wasn't always fun. And I'm not just talking about today. This is a hard thing to do with your life. There are a lot of long hours and late nights and hard lessons. And there is no guarantee that all your work and sacrifice will ever pay off. I won my first election by 312 votes. Could have easily gone the other way. And even when you win, progress is far from inevitable. Paul Wellstone spent his whole life working for mental health parity, and it didn't pass until 6 years after Paul died. This year, a lot of people who didn't grow up imagining that they'd ever get involved in politics have done just that. They've gone to their first protest march or made their first call to a member of Congress, or maybe even taken the leap and put their names on a ballot for the first time. It can be such a rush to look around a room full of people ready to fight alongside you, to feel that energy, to imagine that better things are possible. But you too will experience setbacks and defeats and disappointments. There will be days when you will wonder whether it's worth it. What I want you to know is that even today, even on the worst day of my political life, I feel like it's all been worth it. Politics, Paul Wellstone told us, is about the improvement of people's lives. I know that the work I've been able to do has improved people's lives. I would do it all over again in a heartbeat. For a decade now, every time I would get tired or discouraged or frustrated, I would think about the people I was doing this for and would get me back up on my feet. I know the same will be true for everyone who decides to pursue a politics that is about improving people's lives. And I hope you know that I will be fighting alongside you every step of the way. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.
There it is, guys. So Senator Al Franken yielding the floor after saying this is the worst day in his career in politics. And I think we were expecting this to happen, of course, but I'm going to bring in Tom Fitzgerald, who has a lot of expertise on this topic. Of course, just to check in with you guys, you're watching our live stream here inside the newsroom, and we jumped in just in time to get this speech on the Senate floor as we were sort of tracking. We had a footage of his outside of his home today, and then over to his arrival in the Senate. And now Tom is here to join us.
Hello.
Tom, I know you're covering this today.
Slow news day.
Right, big one here. So there we have it. Let's talk about this resignation. We knew this was coming pretty much.
Remarkable fall from grace.
Yeah.
I mean, when that many members of your own party come forward and start calling for you to leave, you know, at that point, you take the hint and you go. Clearly, if you just watch that, Al Franken did not want to leave. He did not want to resign his seat. But what else is he going to do? Is he going to stand there in the way of a new Minnesota senator who's a Democrat and a woman from taking this seat? Or is he going to fold his arms and deny what's going on around him, which is members of his own party are asking him to leave.
Right.
So in that respect, there weren't really a lot of other moves he could have made today than this. You know, you heard him. It was an interesting speech. You heard him refer to Paul Wellstone a couple of times in that speech. Paul Wellstone is the senator who used to hold that seat. Before Franken had it, Paul Wellstone was a very liberal, very well-known member of the United States Senate. He was killed in a plane crash. Then a Republican won the seat. Franken didn't like the Republican or how the Republican was doing his business, so he ran against him. And it was a razor-thin victory. In fact, it was so close that Al Franken didn't become a senator until the summer of that year because of the court case and the recounts that went on. He did stand for re-election and won. However, in this new climate, you know, there's clearly no question now that the Democrats want to be able to grab whatever kind of advantage they can on this issue. You've had two, not just Al Franken, two major resignations this week. Al Franken this morning, Senator John Conyers Congressman John Conyers earlier in the week. Conyers is 88 years old. He's the longest serving member of the United States Congress. He was on the Watergate Committee, which passed the articles of impeachment against Richard Nixon. These are two very high profile names that have been brought down in the midst. Now, the focus will now also shift to the Republicans. What are they going to do about Brett Farenthold, who we now know settled for upwards of $80,000 for sexual harassment case on Capitol Hill? You know, Joe Barton has already announced his intention to not seek re-election. Does Joe Barton now leave earlier than expected? And what does this mean for the reform efforts? Now, if the answer here is that they out a couple of these people who are guilty of this or are accused of this, and then the system that continues up on Capitol Hill remains in place, that's not progress in a lot of people's eyes, because the system they currently have in place is not anything like any of us who work at companies deal with. Most people who work at companies deal with an HR department. There is no HR department up on Capitol Hill.
I was going to say, right.
They go to this thing that was created in the late 90s because of Senator Bob Packwood, who, was, serially accused of being a sexual harasser and a sexual assaulter. And they created this thing called the Office of Compliance. And the way the Office of Compliance works is that if you are a staffer and you have a complaint against a member of Commerce, the staffer then goes to the Office of Compliance, and it is this Byzantine system of steps you need to go through in order to file a complaint. One of the very first steps, and this tells you a lot about who's being protected here, is a non-disclosure agreement. Before you can even start the process of filing a complaint, you need to sign a non-disclosure agreement.
That you won't out that from if it happens?
Right.
So
any way you look at this, the deck is stacked in the favor of the member of Congress or the senator, or, a lot of these are staffer on staffer complaints as well too. But the person being complained about is the one who seems to get this level of protection that the accuser doesn't even come close to. The accused gets an attorney paid for them by the Office of Compliance, your tax dollars, not theirs. The accuser has to pay for their own lawyer.
Right. Are they working to turn around that system at all? They are.
And it's a bipartisan effort right now. It's being led by Congresswoman Spear and by Congresswoman Comstock, and it's called the Me Too Act. And what this is an effort to bring the harassment notification and complaint process into the 21st century. Back in the 90s, they viewed that as a big step. But, that was 20 years ago, and opinions and attitudes about this kind of thing clearly have changed. This cone of silence that they put over these people who have been accused of this. The only reason we finally were able to get the information we got about John Conyers was because the victim herself decided to come forward. But, the question is this: if taxpayers are going to pay upwards of $15 million, $15.2 million in these settlements, shouldn't taxpayers know who they're settling for and what the details are about why their money is being used in that way. You know, Congress throws around millions like it's pocket change to them sometimes. A lot of people in this country still think $15 million is a lot of money, and it is. And if it's being used to kind of cover up people who are doing these kinds of things to employees, subordinates, co-workers, colleagues, you know, in the air of openness and transparency, you would think that they'd be able to come up with a system that actually tells you where your tax money is being spent and what it's being spent for.
So, did you find anything interesting in his speech, which was obviously prepared for today for the Senate floor, including his mention of President Trump and any of that?
Well, yeah, I mean that was, you know, that was not. I'm trying to pull up the quote here. I mean that was not subtle. What he said was, you know, it's ironic that I am leaving while a man who bragged about sexual assault sits in the White House. You know, clearly that's a shot. He didn't say President Trump by name. Right. Clearly that's a shot at President Trump. Clearly now, the Democrats are going to turn up the heat on what's about to happen in Alabama with the special Senate election. If they've removed, you know, if they've all called for John Conyers to resign, John Conyers resign. If they've called for Al Franken to resign, Al Franken has now resigned. What? You know, the Republican Party re-entered the Alabama race. Right. They are now again supporting Roy Moore financially in the Alabama race, despite numerous allegations that Roy Moore propositioned or sexually assaulted, allegedly, women who were significantly younger than him, underage in some cases. So this is going to shift the spotlight back to the Republicans just days before this Alabama special election. For right now, the Democrats seem to have put out their fires. But the Republicans do have some very significant fires burning. And whether or not this heat now and this focus gets turned into Roy Moore will be very interesting to watch over the next couple of days, because I suspect we're going to see a new ramped up focus on that Alabama Senate race in the midst of this. I was going to say, does this have any implication for next week? Because we've been bringing you guys here on the stream various speeches from Doug Jones and other things, and even both sides, really women for Roy Moore, who have held these gatherings to support him amid all the allegations, and that'll be really interesting come Tuesday. So we're going to make sure we keep that coverage for you guys, but you'll be kind of watching that too, but it will be interesting to see how what this does to sort of preface that. Well, and you know, for the last couple of weeks, and it's one of the reasons the Republican Party stepped back into that race, the Roy Moore situation had seemed to kind of ease a little bit. Roy Moore rose back up again in the polls. He was trailing a little bit. He's back up again. You know, the initial allegations came out in the early part of October. Here we are in December right now. They were starting to feel better about Roy Moore's prospects in that race, and he still may win. It's close now. I think the polls are, you know. Yeah. However, you know, now the Republican side has been kind of robbed of these two talking points. You can't say, well, how can you condemn Roy Moore when you have Al Franken there? You know, understood, completely different allegations against Al Franken and Roy Moore. However, you know, they exist in this conversation about sexual harassment. Right. You can't say from the Republican side, well, how do you condemn Roy Moore if you have John Conyers still in office? John Conyers has now left. So in that respect, politically, this will assist the Democrats in being able to pursue Roy Moore as he heads into the special election next Tuesday. Yeah, really interesting. So then what else, just finalizing sort of what are the steps now? Al Franken says he'll resign in the coming weeks. Then yeah, that one was a bit of a surprise, because what we were hearing initially was that today he was going to resign. My thumbnail sketch of that means they probably just need a little more time in Minnesota. You know, they know who it's going to be. It's going to be the Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota. That much was clear. In fact, during his speech today, he referred to the next senator as her. Oh, okay, yeah. So, but the mechanics of it, there's nothing stopping Al Franken from leaving today. However, they may need some time to work out things with staffing, work out some other things as far as making the transition. You know, Minnesota probably has some constitutional things that they need to figure out when you have a vacancy of the lieutenant governor, stuff like that. There's behind the scenes things that probably do need to work out, and she has to make some decisions as to whether or not how much or if any or all of Franken's staff she would keep on. We've had a couple of instances where, you know, either by death or by resignation, one senator will leave and another senator will come in. You know, I'll give an example of Senator Ted Kennedy. When Senator Ted Kennedy passed away, his good friend Paul Kirk was appointed to fill out the remainder of his term. Most of Senator Kennedy's staff stayed in place. The office in the Russell Rotunda building remained in place. And then eventually, you know, Scott Brown was elected, and you know, that led to Elizabeth Warren now. But initially in some of these vacancies, it's typical that the staff does stay in place, whereas the senator will be switched out. You know, this was also the case when Joe Biden was elected the vice president of the United States. He had to leave the U.S. Senate. Jeff Sessions, when he became you know, the Attorney General of the United States, he left his Alabama Senate seat. Luther Strange came in. You know, our understanding is, you know, most if not all of the Sessions staff has remained in place. So, you know, if you're somebody who's, you know, doing business with the Minnesota senator's office, probably won't see a lot of change because the people that you know and the people that you've dealt with, most people don't deal directly with the senator. And if you do, you're somebody who's written a very large check to them probably.
Oh, man.
So, you know, the day-to-day business of that Senate office will probably go on, although very, you know, differently for those people.
Right.
But the inner workings of the offices tend to be, you know, perpetual motion machines, and, you know, the work of the Senate office for the junior senator of Minnesota will go on.
Yeah, so we just saw yesterday the Time Person of the Year is the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
We talked about this a lot on our stream. Is it safe to say we're totally in new times where this is finally really rearing its head, blossoming?
Well, and let's also understand how stupid I feel about this, talking as this as a man right now, referring to the, you know, the Me Too, because I really do think that this is a moment for women's voices to be, you know, at the forefront, and, you know, men maybe to listen for a change. But here I am bloviating. But anytime you think about what that magazine and what that honor is, only until a couple of years ago did they start calling it Person of the Year. Because year in, year out, my entire life,
it was Man of the Year.
It was Man of the Year.
Interesting point. I forgot about that.
Most times it was always a man. In fact, they used to go out of their way sometimes to not name a woman. They named the computer one time Machine of the Year in the 80s. So given the choice between having a man and a woman one year, they chose a computer and made it Machine of the Year. So, you know, the mere fact that, you know, you look at that magazine right now, I don't know how many people buy Time magazine or how much it occupies the place in people's lives that it used to. But it used to be a big deal, and it's not anymore. So the fact that they were able to kind of, like, you know, come up and recognize this in some way, I think is significant. Whether or not, and I asked this to Governor McAuliffe the other day when we sat down with Virginia's governor, you know, is this a movement or a moment? And he indicated to us that he believes that this is a movement because of the fact that you look at the sustaining arc of this, it's not going away. We've had, you know, remember, we've had media executives, we've had movie stars, we've had politicians now taken down by this. All of these kind of once lofty positions have had incredibly well-known individuals laid low by this issue. So whether, you know, you look at it as something that just popped up this year, which it's not, it's been going on for a long time. Yeah. But it has changed this year in how we talk about it and what its effect has been.
Yeah. So now last question, you'll be covering this essentially today, right? This will be a talk for tonight.
Yes.
How will you kind of gather this together and tell the story?
This is when you ask me.
I always do this, but about our digital viewers, because they don't
before I have my day. She asked me what I'm going to do.
Just to tease out sort of how he would sort of cover this, right? Kind of sensitive subjects.
I'm going to do a really good job on this story. We're in all seriousness, we're going to go up there and we're going to talk to a couple of people who've been pretty major players in this conversation. and we'll have that tonight
Yeah.
live from the Hill.
That's great. Awesome. So some nice analysis
I always feel like
there.
that's a lousy answer.
Well, I'd like to give our digital viewers who are across the nation really just a view as to inside our newsroom.
When I was a kid, my father used to turn to my mother at the breakfast table and say, "Norma, what's for dinner?"
It's obvious, it comes out in a second.
Yeah,
Thing.
which tells you something about my father. But I was also like, "Well, we're eating dinner. How do you know what we're gonna have for dinner?"
Right, right.
But the days, especially today, they evolve. Mm-hmm. So this will evolve with Al Franken. I do not think, I will tell you, that we're probably done hearing about other people coming forward.
Yeah.
I said this. I said this when the Leanne Tweeden story came out.
Which we brought that live. It was during our stream.
It would be very unusual for, and that would have been a mark as to whether or not that story had legs, and it did, because of the fact that typically people don't engage in this kind of behavior once. They do it once, they get away with it, and they try it again. So the fact that we are now up to 8 people who have accused Al Franken, although we should say it was interesting in that speech, although he did not go into details about which ones, he made it very clear in his words that some of the allegations against him were false. We know that he is outright denying the latest allegation from a woman who says that he tried to kiss her in 2006 after the end of his radio show. He used to do a radio show for Air America. It was a liberal, progressive radio network. But Franken denies that happened. He did admit the picture. It was hard to deny the picture that he took with Leanne Tweeden. However, he says he remembers the rehearsal kiss differently.
Yes.
But
that makes me harken back to Matt Lauer really quickly, who said there may have been some mischaracterization or truth about what happened. It makes me think about that.
Well, the thing is too is like you look at some of these allegations against Matt Lauer, against Charlie Rose, against Louis C.K., and you look at what Al Franken is accused of, and they are dramatically different kinds of accusations. However, what they do have in common is they were directed against women against their consent. And that is the thing that ties them all together. So whether it is these incredibly salacious details that we've heard about some of these, or whether it is some of these things like the unwanted touching and grabbing and kissing of Al Franken, there is a theme here that all of these victims who have come forward did not consent to these kinds of actions, and they were at the very basement level, inappropriate for a workplace, inappropriate for any kind of, professional conduct somebody in that kind of position might subscribe to.
Absolutely.
I wish I had better answers on this.
Yeah, guys, let us know what you think. Are you surprised that this happened? We had been kind of talking about this. I think yesterday I even mentioned that we just got the notice that Al Franken was going to be speaking on Thursday, so we were like, we'll make sure we bring that live. And interestingly, it happened right at the top of our show just now at 11:45. So there it is, short and sweet. He resigns in the coming weeks on the Senate floor, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more analysis on this today and throughout the weeks. But.
Yeah. And there's some other things going on up there today too. I'll throw in is the government shutdown we're looking at today. The president's going to meet at about 3 o'clock this afternoon with congressional leaders. We are told that the framework of a deal is in place. However, there is a fight going on right now over whether or not a DACA extension will be included in that, and whether the White House is going to get what it wants, which is more funding for immigration enforcement and also border protection. So while they all seem to be saying the same thing, that they don't want a government shutdown, the president said yesterday it could happen Saturday if they can't solve this issue over immigration. So that kind of threw a wrinkle in this whole thing. It would be bad optics, to say the least, for the Republicans if they were to control the House and the Senate and the White House and still not be able to reach an agreement on a continuing resolution to keep the government open.
Lots of government stuff going on in the few weeks before Christmas. We got some crazy December going on.
Oh, we've had worse Christmases
I know,
than this.
that's true.
The year Obamacare was passed, I was in the Senate at 7 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Eve as they did the final votes in the Senate that day.
That's right. It can go right up to the final moments right before Christmas.
Yes. So if if they were able to get this done today, I'm talking about the continuing resolution right now, and then do an extension for 2 more weeks, they could extend past that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not really the way you want to be running your government, but this is what we're left with right now. So this is the way we're running our government.
Absolutely.
They're probably going to be able to reach a deal in the short term, do a 2-week extension, probably come back right before Christmas, pass another one, get them through the holiday recess, come back, do a long-term spending bill, hopefully, and not have to worry about the government shutting down.
Okay, interesting stuff.
But we'll see.
Guys, we may have another one of our expertise and anchors come join us in a second to discuss.
We have an
Al
expertise
Franken's-
anchor?
You, expertise.
Is that a new
I always
position?
say Fitz is our
The expertise
expert.
anchor.
Sorry. No, but quickly before we lose it, I want to show you this live footage coming in from the World War II Memorial. Looks like they're starting up their Pearl Harbor commemoration. 76 years ago today, the attack on Pearl Harbor. So it's just a gorgeous video coming in. I wanna
Changed my father's life this day.
Oh my goodness! I'm sure that you have.
He went to.
story from this.
Well, yeah, he went.
Yeah,
he
that's
rolled
right.
in the Army Air Corps.
Amazing.
Yeah, went off and fought in World War II, and actually, family was stationed in Hawaii for a number of years.
There it is, guys. We're going to bring this up in a second, but this will be, the lighting isn't too great, but this is down at the World War II Memorial in D.C. right now live. So we'll bring this up for a second, then come back in to the newsroom.
Okay,
Cool.
Good talking to you.
Yeah, you too, Fitz.
All right, take care.
for the culture. Ladies and gentlemen, the Redskins marching band, let's hear it for them.
Sometimes you don't need anything if you got two bands. Two will do it. And you're probably doing it.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the National World War II Memorial on this very special Remembrance Day of Pearl Harbor. Before we start our event, what we usually have is what we call the Parade of Heroes. And we will introduce our World War II veterans. As they come in, they'll be escorted into their seating by the Washington Redskins band. Ladies and gentlemen, our World War II heroes are great Americans. They're going to be seated. Thank you.
They're coming from the left. But, okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce our World War II veterans and our representatives for today. The first is Mr. Harry Miller. Mr. Miller is a veteran of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He served in the United States Army during World War II, taking part in the Battle of the Bulge. He also served with the Army in Korea and with the Air Force during Vietnam. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Harry Miller. Colonel Frederick Clinton, United States Army retired, served with the 254th Infantry Regiment, 63rd Infantry Division in Europe, the European theater from December 1944 to the end of the war in Europe. He remained in the Army and specifically served in the 3rd Infantry Division in Korea and with the 4th Infantry Division in Vietnam. He retired from the Army in July of 1974. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Frederick Clinton. Mr. Norman Duncan served as a Senior Supply Master Sergeant with the Special Services Division during World War II. He was assigned to manage the distribution work of morale supplies for American troops in the United Kingdom and other European locations, and was part of the extended staff of General Eisenhower. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Norman Duncan. Colonel James Jim Riffey, United States Army retired, served with the Army's 27th Infantry Division during World War II, leading a platoon in the invasion of Okinawa in 1945. He spent 30 years with the Army, including serving as Chief of Staff of the 82nd Airborne Division. Airborne, ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Jim Riffey. Mr. Edward Halford enlisted in the Army Specialized Training Program at 17 years old in May 1944. He was in the infantry basic training at Camp Landing, Florida, training for the invasion of Japan when President Truman made the decision to drop the bomb. He later became a radar operator and was sent to the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Edward Halford. Mr. Jack Goldstein served as a gunner for the 535th Bomb Squadron on a B-17 Flying Fortress with the Army Air Forces from 1943 to 1945. Mr. Goldstein completed 25 bombing missions over Western Europe for the Mighty Eight. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jack Goldstein. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Lou Perot served as a ball turret gunner on the B-17 Flying Fortress from 1943 to 1945. He fought 32 missions with the 533rd Bomb Squadron. He is the only living member of his 10-man bomber crew who flew missions over Germany during World War II as part of the 8th Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Lou Perot. Mr. Bill Hare enlisted in the Air Force before he graduated from high school. He served as an engineer on B-17s in the 8th Air Force, 486th, 833rd Bomb Group, and flew 15 missions out of Sudbury, England. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bill Hare. Mr. Kenneth Oberle served with the United States Army Air Forces during World War II. He was assigned to the 834th Bomb Squadron, 486th Bomb Group, 8th Air Force. Mr. Oberle flew 23 bombing missions over Germany from November 1944 to May 1945. Ladies and gentlemen, these are our World War II veterans, our American heroes. Let's hear it. Before I introduce our other wreath presenters, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special group of veterans here today. They are from the country of Korea, but now live in the United States of America. They are Korean veterans of the Korean War, and they come out to honor our World War II veterans and thank them for their service to our country. These are actually veterans of the Korean War from Korea that love the United States. Can they please stand and be recognized? Our wreath presenters for today is Mr. Michael Griggs, is a United States Air Force veteran and served 3 tours in Afghanistan. Mr. Griggs' grandfather was a World War II veteran and Pearl Harbor survivor. Art Griffiths was serving on the USS Priory at Pearl Harbor at the time of the attack on December 7, 1941. Ladies and gentlemen, representing his grandfather, Mr. Michael Griggs. We also have Captain Christian Monahan, Canadian Armed Forces, Embassy of Korea. Commander Ian Wood, Assistant Naval Attaché, Embassy of Korea. Mrs. Paula King, a Senior Specialist with Global Technology Operations for AT&T. AT&T is the lead sponsor of Friends of the National World War II Memorial's 4-year World War II 75th Anniversary Commemoration, which kicked off on Pearl Harbor Day last year and will go through VJ Day 2020 and will feature more than 60 commemoration events. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Paula King. Commander Richard McHugh, Royal Navy Assistant Naval Attaché, the British Embassy. Ms. Ann Dillon, President General, Daughters of the American Revolution. Ms. Carol Jackson, Treasurer General, Daughters of the American Revolution. And if I could, just because they're so beautiful, can I have the rest of the ladies of the DAR please stand to be recognized? They do great things for our schools, our country, and we really appreciate that. Finally, we have Mrs. Laura Sides and First Sergeant Walt Sides from the great organization of Rolling Thunder. They do a great amount for our veterans, and we really, really appreciate them very, very much. Thank you for being here today, ladies and gentlemen. Just a few administrative announcements before we introduce the official party. If you could remain off the plaza during the ceremony, there will be plenty of time afterwards to take pictures. If you need to use the latrines are up by the visitor center. Go up through the Pacific Arch and pass through there, and it's right behind the visitor center if you need to do that. I know if you're suffering from cold, we have some space heat blankets. If you need one, see one of the volunteers in the yellow coat, and they will get one of the space heat blankets for you. So we appreciate it. Our event will be starting very shortly.
All right, guys, so while we have this little interlude, I'm joined by Steve Shenager. You might know him from the morning shows.
Hi, everybody.
Also, kind of a war buff, I guess, right?
A war buff?
You know your stuff. You've been enjoying
I wouldn't
watching?
say a war buff. I appreciate history.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Yeah. I don't want to miss some of the veterans speaking, but I think they're doing like a ceremonial bell. Do you know much about what
Bruce
they're doing
Allen,
now?
actually, from the Redskins, is going to speak in a minute. So
cool.
we can cut back and forth, I guess.
Yeah, we will.
When he talks, but it's kind of interesting. Here's what just blows me away, and what, if you were just watching, seeing some of these veterans come. First of all, Pearl Harbor, one of the darkest days in U.S. history, 76 years ago. And to see men who were there, who survived that, who are still alive,
I know, it's insane.
B, alert, and C, willing to travel and be here in Washington and be out at the World War II Memorial today. That just blows me away.
Yeah.
And I think it's so amazing because if they didn't lie about their age to get in the service, they'd be at least 94 years old.
And that was a common thing, right? People would say they just wanted to serve.
Well, somewhat,
and they would,
yeah. I don't know how common, but going back to World War I, you would hear stories of people that are 14, 15 years old that would just say, "No, hey, I'm old enough to do this because I want to serve my country."
Yeah.
So absolutely, it happened at some points. Now, for these gentlemen, I don't know what their status is, but I mean, man, the things that they've seen in their lifetime, it's just unbelievable.
I wonder where some of them flew in from too. I mean, they're from all over, but
yeah. And one of the coolest things I saw was when that memorial, the World War II Memorial, first opened here in DC. I was down there that morning, and
cool.
it was just
awesome.
It was just amazing to see, and obviously, unfortunately, we lose more and more World War II veterans every day. So that obviously was many years ago, and so there were many more around. But then it was just throughout the morning, more and more veterans that would come in, and the way the memorial is set up with the different conflicts represented at the memorial, and they would go stand by the conflict that they fought in. And, it was just like basically a morning-long photo op for all of these people who had come to D.C. from all over the country, and they were there with their families, and they were so proud. And I mean, that was one of the more amazing things I've seen.
That's
in
awesome.
Washington.
What year was that?
It was really cool. See, I knew you were going to ask me, and I don't remember.
Wait. Oh, I guess we could look it up. But that it opened, so you were there to cover that.
Yeah, I was there. I was doing morning live shots for Fox.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
But it was really cool. I can say.
I can look it up.
But it was
But
a while ago, probably 10 years ago. More than that.
I wonder if we'll
probably.
hear from any of the veterans if they'll be able to speak. Did they say that we were gonna?
I'm not sure. I know that Bruce Allen is actually speaking right now. It looks like from the Redskins.
Oh, we can pull that up.
So you can see what he has to say.
Yeah.
The men and women of our country that stood up against tyranny, and in 4 years, not short by the standards of those that were involved, but by our standards, historically very short, 4 years, they were able to conquer not one front, but two fronts. And that's why you have the Atlantic on my left and the Pacific on my right, and all the states and all the provinces that were involved in that effort. So it is amazing for us to stand here and enjoy our freedoms today because of the brave men and women that went before us. For all the World War II vets that are still with us today on both sides of me, I think a round of applause is probably due. I want to introduce today, to my right here, we have now today's commemoration. Our keynote speaker for today is truly a patriotic American. He is the president of the Washington Redskins team, a team that we had so much hope for, so much promise this year. Their injuries.
All right, we're gonna wait till Bruce Allen comes up.
Yeah, he's I guess they're going to go through the list of all the speakers first before he speaks. I thought they might bring him up first. But you found out 2004?
Yeah, we looked it up.
Was when that was,
2004 is when the World
memorial
War
was
II
dedicated?
opened in
That's pretty
April. George W. Bush was in office. You were covering it.
Yeah.
I was graduating high school. But honestly, it's one of the newer memorials then,
It
right?
was-
On the mall?
Yeah, oh yeah, it was
one of the
it
newest.
was a huge deal when it was first built. For me, like I said, my two memories there that morning was just kind of waiting. I think the event was probably like 9 or 10 o'clock, and obviously we didn't have Good Day back then, so it was like kind of like an extension of the show, and just down there all morning and watching more and more of the veterans come in. But it was big. I mean, Tom Brokaw was down there from NBC News, and then I had a chance to talk with him, and of course he was a huge war buff, and to see people at that level who were you know, excited to see this honor for our veterans. But I mean, like I said, if that was 2004, 13 years ago.
Only a few years after 9/11. That's interesting.
Then it would have been, most of those veterans would have been in their 80s at that point, because now they're like in their 90s. So obviously there would have been more, but still,
there were more of them.
you know, they weren't super young.
Right.
But to see them that active and getting around was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful memorial too, with the
It's
states
really pretty
all around.
Yeah,
and
I always like that too. It's just so
I
pretty.
do too.
So if you haven't seen it yet, go down, check it out.
Yeah, for sure. I know a lot of you guys are in the Pacific Northwest and other areas of the country, but
walk down,
when
go to
you're
the
here.
Lincoln Memorial, and then walk down along the reflecting pool, and go down to the World War II Memorial. It's amazing, and make sure to walk all the way inside, and the wall
Right
of
here.
you can see kind of some of it there, and then if they ever pan over to the right. There's, first of all, there's a column for every state and U.S. territory, which people like to get their pictures taken by the state, and wherever their home state is. And then behind the water in the back is the Wall of Stars, which represents the number of people who were lost in World War II. And each, I don't want to say this is wrong, but each star represents like 100 people or something who were lost. So
really?
it's pretty significant. It's 100 or 1,000, something like that. I'll have to look up the details, but each star is representative of many U.S. service members whose lives were lost, and it's just really sobering to see that when you see all the stars that were there, and then you realize that each one represents many American service members. Which you can hear as it pans over right now. You can kind of look. It's going to be all the way in the back. There you go.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Each one of those is a star
stars.
there on that back wall, and each one of those stars represents many Americans who were lost behind the fountains. And they have it set up like that in the background.
Yeah.
So it kind of like dips. If you're looking right now, it looks like it's all on the same level. But when you walk back to view the stars, you're actually walk down a little bit. So at that point, all you see is the stars. You can't, at that point,
That's
see
really
over
cool.
it.
I didn't realize
and you
that.
can't see the reflecting pool or the Lincoln Memorial anymore. And that's really just so that you can take in that moment and get that sobering vision as to how many lives were lost there. And the rest of the memorial obviously is elevated. So then when you walk back around and you see the beautiful water and the fountains and the whole picture, and then you stand kind of where this camera position is now, and you look back and you see obviously the Lincoln Memorial, which will come into view in just a second, right there behind it. So that's like the grand view right there. But when you walk behind it to where that Wall of Stars is, you actually walk down a little bit, so you don't see the Lincoln anymore.
Down.
Yeah, you slope down so that you really just embrace that. And that's where a lot of people will leave flowers and things like that for their loved ones who are there.
Yeah,
so,
good little tidbit fact. That's
it's
awesome.
really cool. But I think, to me personally, I think it's one of the more beautiful memorials that we have. And you know, a lot of people come to Washington and they want to see the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Monument, and it's smack in between the two of them.
This is always the one I recommend to my mom and like my family when they come down, because of its significance and whatnot. But I didn't know that thing about the stars. That's cool. Yeah. Also, the pool inside is like a memorial pool. You're not supposed to obviously be in it or throw anything in it.
It's always been a sticking point. We've done stories on that over the years.
Yeah.
It's whether it's not. It's because you'll see sometimes kids will put their feet in, and it's like, is it disrespectful? Is it not? And
I mean, if it was built for that, not.
Yeah, you know, I just tell people err on the side of caution and respect, and you know, it may be a 100-degree summer day, but let's find another water source. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, people like to do that run, like through the Lincoln, and you can run
I do that all the
through
time.
two,
On the mall.
and the mall run.
Somebody just asked me the other day how far that is.
It's a lot.
And I
Multiple
think
miles?
it's, well, if you go from the Lincoln and run the reflecting pool and then around the World War II Memorial to the Washington Monument, and if you keep going down kind of like in front of the Capitol and back, it's about 4 miles for the loop.
So for the whole.
Yeah. So it's about, the length of the mall is about 2 miles. So it's about 2 miles up, 2 miles back if you do the whole thing.
That's great.
So, but it's great. It's scenic. It's wide pathways, and you know, good people watching with all the tourists who are in town. And
it's really beautiful. Yeah, if you guys have been to the World War II, if you know anything about it, let us know in the comments, of course. Yeah, thanks, Steve, for this
You're very welcome.
conversation.
It'll be interesting to see what Bruce Allen has to say too. I'm not sure, and we knew that he was going to be down there, the Redskins band, and of course Bruce Allen, the president of the Redskins. But I'm not sure what he. You know, what his connection will be? And his focus will be for this particular moment today, but we'll find out in a couple
I didn't
minutes.
realize he would even be there until you told me, so then you knew. But
So that's great.
all right, we're going to jump back into this coverage and let's see you go ahead.
Thanks for letting me chat.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
All right, cool. See you next time.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let us pray. Almighty, gracious, and loving God, as we begin this Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day ceremony, we invite your presence and we give you thanks. Lord, December 7th, 1941 is a day that lives on in infamy. The deliberate attack on Pearl Harbor that day so long ago stands as a solemn reminder that not everything that happens in our world reflects your goodness or your grace. In fact, your word tells us that there will always be wars and rumors of war, calamity and strife. Ironically, Scripture challenges us not to fret or to fear. Instead, it instructs us to pray and to seek your face. And so today, we once again pause to commemorate those service members and citizens of the United States who were killed or injured. We rejoice over the countless thousands of survivors. And in like manner, we remember their family members, friends, and loved ones, some of whom are here with us today. Eternal Father, thank you for the sacrifices that were made at Pearl Harbor and in all theaters of World War II, that in the hour of need, you gave men and women strength, courage, conviction, and resolve to stand firm no matter the cost. We will never forget. May those brave souls who still remain know your hand of favor, and may we all, each and every one, continue to find our hope in you. God of our fathers, this we ask, this we pray in your most holy name. Amen. Please be seated. History is an interesting thing. For many who don't study it and are just passerbys, when they stop and they ponder, when you walk through a memorial like this, it's hard not to be overcome with emotion when you consider that each and every pillar doesn't represent one, doesn't represent hundreds. It represents hundreds of thousands of people that were a part of the effort in World War II. And after that war was over, so many people still couldn't tell you how many people sacrificed. These pillars are here to tell us that all gave some, and some gave all. But close to 75 to 78, depending on which historian you listen to, 75 to 78 million people perished as a result of World War II. If you could just put those numbers in your head and try and make sense of it, that would be a third of the United States on the East Coast side gone. People don't remember that. You talk to the kids today and they say, wait a second, well, how many were lost? So it's always a good time on a day like today to come to a memorial such as this and give thanks for those who came before us and sacrificed so much, and put into perspective what our freedoms really mean and what our country now stands for. This morning, what I want to do is introduce you to our keynote speaker. In just a second, let me just catch myself up on the notes here. 1 second. I did out of order last time, and I got some flack for that, so. Let's see. I want to introduce to you the acting superintendent of the National Mall and Memorial Parks, the National Park Service. And again, when you walk through this memorial and all the memorials on the mall, they are in pristine condition, and it is because of this man right here. I want to introduce you to Cassius Cash.
On behalf of the National Park Service, it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to the World War II Memorial for the commemoration of the 76th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. We gathered this afternoon to remember and honor the nearly 2,400 individuals who died on December 7, 1941, the opening chapter of a war in which more than 400,000 Americans would make the supreme sacrifice. With us this morning are several World War II veterans, many of whom were present at Pearl Harbor on the morning of December 7, 1941. I want to say welcome to the World War II Memorial. Welcome to your memorial. Your presence today reminds us not only of a solemn chapter in American history, but also inspires us about the great courage, resolve, and commitment of the fighting men of World War II that continues to define us as a nation. The National Park Service is proud to work with the Friends of the National World War II Memorial, which is led by Mr. WWII Bunting. Also want to thank the organization for sponsoring today's remembrance. The National Park Service thanks all of the friends for their service to this memorial, and we share your mission to ensure that the legacy and sacrifices of World War II veterans are never forgotten. And it is a privilege to welcome our keynote speaker today, Mr. Bruce Allen, President of the Washington Redskins, a team with long and strong support for our nation's military and veterans. As we heard President Franklin Roosevelt's message to Congress following the attack on Pearl Harbor is among the most famous in American history. And his opening line described in December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, is among the most well-known phrases in the 20th century. But it is the conclusion of that brief speech, after he had laid out the reasons why the United States should go to war, that Roosevelt identified how the war would be won. And that was with the quote of, with confidence in our armed forces, with the undaunted determination of our people, we will gain an inevitable triumph. And those are the very things that ultimately carry the United States to victory. And that the National Park Service commemorates and honors here at World War II Memorial. The 16 million Americans who served in the armed forces of the United States during World War II, and countless millions of who supported the war effort at home. And it's not just on Memorial Day, Veterans Day, Pearl Harbor Day, or feast-like days throughout the year that we do this. We are here every day, every year, watching old displays, passing along the stories of heroism and honoring the sacrifices of the greatest generation to the current generation. And the National Park Service is in the forever business, ensuring that those sacrifices, your sacrifices, will be remembered in perpetuity, so that when your grandchildren's grandchildren visit this place and their grandchildren, they will always remember sharing the stories of your heroism and explaining how the America we know today and the blessings we enjoy as a free people was shaped by your deeds. Thank you.
It's amazing to me to think that in our lifetime, this memorial wasn't even here. Well, I'm looking at some of the older folks here, but it was only 13, 14 years ago, and they were debating on whether or not to build it. If you remember back when Saving Private Ryan came out, and there was a renewed interest in World War II, because we live in a Nintendo generation, it seems, where people's attention spans are not that long. And they talked about building a World War II memorial, and actually some people were hand-wringing and wondering if they'd raise enough money. Well, now look around you. This is one of, probably, to me, is, I think, one of the most beautiful memorials on the National Mall. And what it stands for, what it signifies, absolutely. At this time in the program, we would like to call Mr. Sam Fielder, veteran of the United States Marine Corps, to recite a poem that he wrote called Pearl Harbor. Mr. Fielder?
Now heard me. Before I do this poem, I want to thank all these World War II veterans, because my generation grew up during World War II. My brother was a Marine in World War II and was already in the Marine Corps when Pearl Harbor happened. But he spent 22 months in the South Pacific, all the way from Guadalcanal to Japan. On December the 7th, 1941, the attack on Pearl Harbor had just begun. 200 miles of water they came across that night, caught our sleeping naval fleet in their battle sites. They sunk the Oklahoma. They sunk the Utah, too. At the bottom of Pearl Harbor, put the Arizona and her crew. If 2,500 lives were lost that fatal day, we got to retaliate. We got to make them pay. FDR called for thousands. Millions joined the throng. Remember Pearl Harbor became the battle song. Remember Pearl Harbor as we did the Alamo, and onward into battle as we go to meet the foe. They overran the Philippines and the Isles of Saipan. Remember how they fought for Wake and the death march up Bataan. The sky was full of this planes, the ships ruled the sea. They were the enemy. FDR called for thousands and millions joined the throng. Remember Pearl Harbor became the battle song. Remember Pearl Harbor as we did the Alamo and onward into battle as we go to meet the foe. We opened up defense plants all across the land, had to back up our boys who went to make a stand. It turned out battleships and airplanes almost every day, and onward into battle to go to meet the fray. We chased them out of the Solomon, across the Coral Sea, won the Battle of Midway, returned to the Philippines, unfurled our flag on Iwo for all the world to see, and turned our guns to the mainlands of the enemy. FDR called for thousands, millions joined the throng. Remember Pearl Harbor was the battle song. Remember Pearl Harbor like we did the Alamo, and onward into battle as we go to meet the foe. Harry said, now hit 'em, boys, they caught us in our sleep. Gonna bring 'em down from that hill, knock 'em off of the heap. We didn't ask for that war, we only wanted peace. Back home in the USA, they were dancing in the streets. FDR called for thousands and millions joined the throng. Remember Pearl Harbor was the battle song. But we don't remember Pearl like we did the Alamo. We only remember the bombs we dropped and what they did below. Thank you.
Give me just 1 second here. Want to recognize some stuff.
Thank you guys for joining us for this coverage of the Pearl Harbor Memorial. They're commemorating 76 years since that attack on Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. And obviously they're kind of going through various speakers here. I'm not sure if we'll hear from some more veterans, but that would be really interesting. But the ceremony goes on, and like we mentioned earlier in our conversation with Steve, I think we'll be hearing from the president of the Redskins, Bruce Allen, as well. And it'll be interesting to see sort of the significance of why he's there to talk. I know the band was the marching band from the Redskins, so we heard from them a little bit earlier. But we're going to stay here for this coverage. Of course, one of the bigger events that we're getting fed in from Fox today, and we'll listen in again. All right, guys, thank you for joining us, and thanks for continuing to comment and let us know what you think about this coverage and the memorial itself. Lots of just so much interesting history here, of course, this being namely one of the most notable and significant memorials that we have and that people can really connect to still, of course, 76 years later. All right, we're going to jump back into the stream, guys, and then we'll come back into the newsroom.
It's veterans. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Mr. Josiah Bunting to the podium.
Tom Brokaw, as far as I know, is the first person to use the phrase the greatest generation. When we think of the greatest generation, and we are blessed to have many of its representatives still among us, we think not only about their valor, about their courage, about their dedication, but we think also about a quality in American life which is almost extinct, in which they represent modesty, humility. They served, they gave, their contribution will live forever. And when you ask them what was it they did, they simply say quietly, I was in the service. There were no selfies then. There were no people who thought about themselves when they served our country. Their lives since then have been a testimony to the valor they experienced and expressed in matchless integrity. Days like this have a religious charge to them. And when we think of religion, we think also of evangelism. I charge all of us to be evangelists in behalf of what we see and experience here today, and to project to generations yet unborn what our country was in those years and still is in the persons of those who served and our indebtedness to them. I had an experience several years ago teaching at a university up north, teaching a class of bright students, none of whom had ever heard of John Pershing. It reminds me that history must be cultivated and that we must be its evangelists so that succeeding generations can never forget and never fail to be inspired by those things that inspire us today and by the consciousness of our collective indebtedness to that generation whose sacrifices began at Pearl Harbor. God bless our country.
You know, they say, as I said earlier, history is a funny thing. When I was in college a couple years ago, one of my professors, I was a history major, and he said it's simple. It's his story. That's all it is. That's what history is. But we have to bear witness to all the history that we've seen. And if you didn't live through a period, then it's always a good idea to talk to somebody that actually did so you get firsthand experience. So many World War II veterans die every day. I think the number that I heard was somewhere between 300 and 400 every single day perish. And with them, the stories of heroism, the stories of valor, the stories of how they would lie about their age in order to get into the service when they were 16 years old because an older sibling was in. So they would lie, they pass the test, and they go in. As a journalist, I was fortunate enough to talk to one of those. Walt Ehlers was the youngest Congressional Medal recipient. He lied about his age to get in, and it was basically in the movie Saving Private Ryan. He got on the beach of D-Day, and he said when they were being pinned down and he saw a bunch of people around him being blown to pieces, which was new for him, he said, in that moment, I just made a deal with God. Please get me off this beach with my men, and I'll be a good Christian. That was the deal that he made. And he got off the beach with his men, and he actually took out not one but two of the pillboxes that were overlooking Omaha Beach. And that's not what won him the Congressional Medal recipient. That's not the recognition he got for that medal. He got it later when he himself took out a mortar compound that had been built by the Germans. They were dressed as Americans, and they were shelling an American installation. And he jumped in there thinking that his men were on both sides of him, and he started taking out the Germans by himself, only to realize he was all by himself. His men were about 25 paces behind him, so he was by himself. It's that kind of valor, it's those kinds of stories. I really wish the kids were learning today in school. But as adults, it's our job to tell our kids these kinds of stories, to bring them to these kinds of memorials so that they will remember the sacrifices that were made and what basically paved the way for our country. Because had World War II gone south for us, that wasn't a take our ball and go home kind of thing. That was, we were done as a country. It was all or nothing in that war. And everybody who signed on, whether they were legal age or they lied about their age to get in, they knew that. And after Pearl Harbor, it changed everything in the mindset and the psyche of the American people. Everybody wanted to do something in order to fight that war and win that war. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could draw your attention to the Redskins band. We are privileged to have with us the Redskins band that will now perform a tribute to our veterans.
Yeah, guys, so if you're watching with us, this is the Redskins marching band that is performing outside, or rather within, the World War II Memorial in downtown D.C., right there on the National Mall. And we've been hearing from various speakers, some veterans, really just astounding. There's really not a lot of words to describe how amazing it is to see some of these veterans get up there, walk, like I said, we were mentioning before, travel as far as they did, come to this. And there's only a few of them, really a handful, remaining to even be able to celebrate, to commemorate rather, the attack on Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. Quickly mentioning some of your comments, I just wanted to go back to Graham. I see that you're mentioning Franken. Yes, we definitely took his resignation at the top of the show today. So if you did miss that, we have it live for you from the beginning. We jumped right in at the beginning of his statement, and it was relatively succinct. It mentioned a few things and detailed how he'll be resigning in the coming weeks. So something that we chatted a little bit with Tom Fitzgerald, our political reporter here, about if or not we're surprised about that, what we think, and will this sort of span now into others coming forward, and eventually seeing this, like I said, pervade Congress a little bit more, perhaps seeing more resignations, possibly even into some higher offices as well. But pretty interesting, and glad that you were able to either see that or just at least comment to it. I hope that you guys are going to enjoy. Oh, Graham, cool, good. I'm glad you're going to go get to watch that after. But this really is the big commemoration of the day. We knew this was coming in, of course, December 7th being such a notable date. And I think it's amazing that we are really a stone's throw away from this that you see here, memorial, and it's open for you to see if you're around here. It's open to the public, of course, and just a gorgeous area. Down in the mall, looks like the sun is shining, and it's a beautiful day for them to commemorate this. If you have any other thoughts or questions, keep the comments rolling in as always. I'm here in the digital newsroom bringing you whatever we got live coming in, and this is quite a spectacular, significant event for us today. Right now, a couple other feeds coming in from the Senate floor. We're going to be looking for some more reaction, perhaps to the Franken resignation, among other things that might pop up in Congress today, what we're watching. And we'll keep you abreast of all the breaking news as we have it. All right, let's jump back to see this Redskins marching band on this Thursday, guys.
Thank you very much. Nice job. All right. Bruce Allen. You guys know who Bruce Allen is? Like the Redskins? Bruce Allen really has come full circle when you think about his life. He started with the Redskins as the ball boy. One of those guys running out in the field, grabbing the ball. They got a dirty ball, a sweaty ball. He needed one to change it out for him right away, and then he'd run back to the sidelines. That's how it started for him. But it's gone a whole lot further than that. That was when his father, George Allen, the late Hall of Famer head coach, who led the over-the-hill gang, Washington Redskins, to the NFC Championship back in '72, and then to a Super Bowl performance. Mr. Allen now is the president of the Redskins football team. He joined the Redskins as the team's executive vice president, general manager on December 17, 2009, after a decorated career spanning more than 3 decades as a general manager and executive with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Oakland Raiders, and a successful run with USFL with Chicago Blitz and the Arizona Wranglers. Anybody remember that league? 4 heads are nodding yes. There we go. Okay, 5. Under Allen's leadership, the Washington Redskins have maintained strong support for our nation's military and veterans. The community, especially, even launching Redskins Salute. It's a free military appreciation community. Mr. Allen also serves as a member of the Friends of the World War II 75th Anniversary Honorary Committee alongside Presidents George H.W. Bush, Jimmy Carter, Senator Bob Dole, Tom Hanks, Frederick Smith, and others that we have honored. And we are honored to have him with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for Mr. Bruce Allen.
Wow, you brought up all those other names. I guess they couldn't come here to speak today. Mr. Cash, Mr. Bunny, soldiers, sailors, Marine, airmen, and Coast Guard members and guests. What a great honor and a pleasure it is for me to be here today to celebrate this day with you all. I might mention that
It's great to have my band here with us too today. And I want to thank the Washington Redskins band who was working late last night at FedEx Field. I got the video of it to be here. You have to admit it's pretty cool when your own company has their own band. That's pretty good. In my great profession of football, we talk about words like commitment, dedication, team effort, and reliability. We talk about that on a daily basis. But being here at this magnificent memorial among these great heroes tells you really how insignificant our jobs are. Our World War II veterans risked everything for this country and our freedoms. Your determination to protect America and its people and our allies from an evil opponent is inspiring to everybody. Especially those, like myself, who weren't alive to watch your historic war and your great victory. One doesn't need to be a history major to appreciate what these brave men and women did for our country. Their will and intestinal fortitude has been tested like no other generation before them or after. Just think for a moment what these veterans had gone through. Most of them were born during the Great War or right after. They lived through Black Tuesday. They survived the Great Depression, where in our country we had 25% unemployment. Obstacles that our current society would have a very difficult time overcoming. Heck, today, if the internet goes out at a local high school, they might call the National Guard for help. It seems like every time this generation was tested, they came back with a victory. I recently read a book written by Angela Duckworth. It was titled Grit. And it said grit can't be measured or tested. It's really an attitude. It's an attitude about perseverance and passion for a single purpose. And I think that word grit best describes these heroes who fought for us in World War II. When I was at the office, I was going through our scouting manuals that we do. We ask our scouts around the country different characteristics of prospects we're going to look at. And there's words in there that are amazing that I want to bring up to you today on the coincidence of being around these heroes. We ask if these prospects are unselfish, if they have a commitment, are they dependable, are they going to be a good teammate, are they coachable, are they tough, are they a winner? Clearly, the Scouting Report on the 16 million Americans that served this country in World War II can all check those boxes. It best describes these people and these heroes. And it is why this generation will always be known as the greatest generation. There's another similarity we have with the service in football. We share a common appreciation for leadership, whether it's your coaches or the officers in the military, that were given a game plan to follow. The difference is that our brave warriors knew they had to win. They knew they had to win for America and our allies. Our fans and our band loves playing Hail to the Redskins when we score a touchdown, and yes, our fans and team are depressed when we lose a game like we did last week. But our men and women knew they had to go win a war, and they did it. I've also been taught in sports that an organization and a team or a business needs a standard, something that most people would call a motto. With the Washington Redskins, ours has been the future is now. In our players' jerseys, we put in the lining of their jersey 3 words: team, effort, and tradition. Once again, our sport is the minor leagues compared to the military.
No one has bolder mottos, more transparent mottos for mission than our military, and I'd like to cite some of them today because it gives me a chill just saying them. For the Army, this will defend. The Coast Guard, always prepared. Navy, not self, but country. The Marine Corps, always faithful. The Air Force, aim high, fly, fight, win. One of my favorites is the Navy SEALs. The only easy day was yesterday. And for the Merchant Marines, actions, not words. For Team USA, Pearl Harbor marked the beginning of the war. For our enemies, it was the beginning of the end. It was a day that defined America and changed the world. On behalf of all the prior Washington Redskins teams, all the current Washington Redskins, and all the future Washington Redskins teams, we can't begin to thank you enough for your service, your courageous service for our country, and winning that war. Because of you, we're able to pursue our dreams of playing the game of football. Because of you, we're allowed to pursue the American dream. And probably more important, because of you, you've inspired future generations of military service who continue to protect the American way. In closing, I quote the President Reagan. I think it's fitting. He once said, "We are the land of the free, thanks to the brave." God bless all our World War II veterans, and God bless America. Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our wreath-laying ceremony, I would like you to take a look behind you and see the future that who's now protecting us. Look at these sailors right here that came down to remember those that gave the ultimate sacrifice. This is our future. We're in good hands, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hear it for these sailors in the Washington District of Washington. Thank you for being here. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated as we prepare for the wreath-laying ceremony.
Looks like we might be getting a little bit of a different angle for this wreath-laying ceremony, guys, coming at the sort of towards the end, I think, of this Pearl Harbor commemoration ceremony 76 years later. We just heard from Bruce Allen, president of the Redskins. I know some of you guys were chatting about this. Kind of interesting to see him make the comparison of his team, definitely talking up his football team in a way, but thanking the veterans on behalf of his team for their service, of course. But looks like our camera is moving around. Get a little glimpse here of what it looks like around that pool, around where the monument is, and those each individual pillar dedicated to a certain state, United States, and we might be able to get a nice little vision of the Lincoln Memorial from here as well. So hopefully we have this for a little bit longer. I'd like to see this ceremony. Quickly, we do have this coming in. Looks like a quick bump shot of, there it is, White House press briefing that is coming up shortly. I didn't realize it was going to be so early. We didn't actually get a warning about it, so now we know it's there. Also looking at a live look inside the Senate floor. There is Menendez there talking about the DREAM Act. So we have Senate floor discussing Dreamers and DACA. And those are my three good feeds right now. So I want to take us back to this memorial so we can continue to have this live. Some beautiful beauty shots of Washington, of course. And we'll take it here for now. And then we'll go over to the briefing if that does happen within our time here. So, all right, guys, stay on with us. And thanks as always for watching. say. So this wreath ceremony, of course, ongoing here, guys. The sound of the fountain, the water rushing kind of in the background. So apologies for some of the sound on the mic from some of the speakers, but this is a beautiful ceremony. We've been on it for a little bit of time now. I do want to jump over to the White House press briefing. It looks like Sarah Sanders just came up to the podium, and of course, amid Senator Al Franken's resignation today, I think this should be quite an interesting one for question and answers. So let's jump over there. This is a little bit earlier than it has been in recent days. We've seen the White House briefing later on in the afternoon, and usually not even on our stream as of late because it's so much later in the afternoon, but it's just about 1:40 Eastern time. We're going to jump over to see what the White House has to say as this Pearl Harbor ceremony does conclude. Hope that you've enjoyed that coverage. Really just a beautiful ceremony and just astounding to think of the service. There's a veteran right there walking across the way there. I know our camera's a little bit choppy on this, but the wreath ceremony, just so beautiful. Let's see if I can split shot it so we can keep our eyes on this and then watch Sarah Sanders in the right corner.
Century. To this day, St. Matthew's continues helping children and families during the Christmas season. They usually do it anonymously, but word of their generosity spread through social media this year. At the local Walmart, numerous families will come to pay the bill for Christmas toys they'd put on layaway and be told that there's no need because it's already been paid in full. There will be so many acts of generosity and kindness that go unnoticed this Christmas season, and that's okay. St. Matthew's Church wasn't looking for credit, and neither are so many others. But these stories are important because they remind us what this season is all about, and that's the greatest gift of all, that a Savior was born. And hopefully we can all focus and take time out of our busy schedules to enjoy the Christmas season or however you may celebrate. And with that, I'll take your questions. Kevin.
Thank you, Sarah. I want to ask you about the possible government shutdown and the optimism that the president might have that he can avert a shutdown. And if I could follow up and ask about the California fires and the very latest that the White House has on it.
Sure. In terms of the government shutdown, look, we expect a clean CR to pass with Democrat support. That's what we hope will happen. Funding the government, particularly our military, our Veterans Affairs, are always important, but particularly now with so many threats that we face globally, this is certainly an important priority for the administration, and we hope something that will be discussed and agreed to later today. Jennifer?
On the fires, I'm sorry.
Sorry, on the fires, was there a specific question?
Yeah, does is the White House in coordination with the folks out in California in battling that wildfire, is there more money to be made available? Especially for the areas near Los Angeles, which are under siege right now by so many devastating fires.
Absolutely. The administration is staying in regular contact. Both FEMA and folks here at the White House are speaking regularly to state and local authorities and making sure that we're ready and able to help when needed and when requested by those authorities. Jennifer?
Can we say a little bit about why John Bolton was here at the White House today, and also on taxes? We're a little confused on whether the White House would support a 22% corporate tax rate. You had the White House economist Kevin Haas talking about saying it would be okay and it wouldn't undermine the economy. And then a few hours later, the legislative affairs director, Mark Short, said something about it needs to be 20. So can you say...
Look, our focus has been on getting the lowest corporate rate possible. 15 is better than 20, 20 is better than 22, and 22 is better than what we have. Again, we're going to continue to push, but we're not going to negotiate that from the podium, and we're committed to getting the lowest corporate rate we can. On John Bolton, he is here. He's a friend of the president, somebody who he wanted to visit with, nothing more than that, nothing more than a check-in and a friendly visit. Jonathan?
Sarah, Donald Trump Jr. refused to talk about his conversations with the president, citing attorney-client privilege. Would the president release him from any such privilege and allow him to speak to the committee?
That's a question you would have to ask his attorneys. We believe that his lawyers had a legitimate reason and basis for not answering those questions, but that's something I would direct you to his attorneys to address more fully.
Matthew? Can you explain to me how it could be attorney-client privilege when neither Donald Trump Jr. nor President Trump are attorneys?
Again, that's something that you would have to talk with Don Jr.'s attorneys about. That's not something I'm going to be able to comment from here. Matthew?
Thanks, Sarah. Senator Franken today, in announcing his resignation, said, quote, that he's aware that there is some irony in the fact that I'm leaving while a man who has bragged on tape about his history of sexual assault sits in the Oval Office, and a man who has repeatedly preyed on young girls campaigns for the Senate with the full support of his party, end quote. What's the White House response to that?
Look, the president addressed the comments back during the campaign. We feel strongly that the people of this country also addressed that when they elected Donald Trump to be president, and I've addressed it several times from here and don't have anything new to add.
Can you say anything more broadly about the differences in the way the two parties are handling these accusations of sexual misconduct?
I think that some of that would be left to some of the party leadership. I'm not sure if there's a specific question in there on the differences, but John?
Thank you, Sarah. Have any of the president's counterparts from around the world contacted the president, contacted the White House to indicate that they too will follow the president's lead in moving their embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, or acknowledging that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel?
I'm not aware of any country's commitment to follow suit in this at this time.
Do you expect that to happen? Do you expect that others will follow the president's lead here?
I'm not aware of any countries that we anticipate that happening at any point soon. I'm not saying that they aren't, but I'm not aware of them. Jordan?
Thanks, Sarah. Last week, the president said that the U.S. would be imposing additional sanctions on North Korea today. Do you have an update on where that stands?
Yeah, we expect the Department of Treasury to put out more details on that, hopefully by the end of this week, and we'll keep you guys posted on that front. Jennifer?
Thanks, Sarah. What is the president's reaction to some U.S. allies, particularly in Europe, notably the United Kingdom, who have expressed opposition to his action recognizing Jerusalem? And also, does the fact that he kept his promise give him more credibility when negotiating in the Middle East?
Certainly, I think one of the abilities to follow through on something you've committed to, as the president has done. But also, let's not forget that this was something that Congress voted on starting back in 1995 and has reaffirmed 10 separate times over the last 20 years. This is something that the president took action on, a very courageous and bold action, and something that, frankly, the members of the United States Congress have voted on many times before. Olivia?
Thank you, Sarah. Sarah, yesterday you guys put out a statement under the president's name saying that he was directing other officials in the administration to reach out to Saudi Arabia and urge them to immediately allow the flow of humanitarian supplies into Yemen. I have two questions about that. The first is, why isn't the president himself working the phones? And the second is, are there any consequences for Saudi Arabia if they don't immediately allow this flow of goods?
My understanding is the president did bring these up on previous conversations, and that I believe there are actions that are taking place for a port to open, and we'll keep you posted as those details become more available. Major?
On Monday.
Sorry?
Any consequences for Saudi if they don't do this?
As I just said, we have reason to believe that they're moving in that direction for a port to be open. We'll keep you posted. Major?
On Monday, when the president became aware that Michael Flynn lied to the FBI, you referred her to John Dowd. Those of us who have tried, John Dowd is not engaging on that. That's a knowable fact in this building. It's not a legal matter, not for the attorney to say. Can you just tell us when the president became aware of that?
You know, the attorneys feel differently, and they feel this is a question that should be answered by them, and I'll encourage them again to respond to you, but I'm going to have to refer you back to John Dowd again.
It's a legal question for them, not about something the president knew and when he knew it.
As I said before, John Decker's the only attorney in here. I'm going to listen to the attorneys on this one, and John Dowd hopefully will follow up with you in short order. Mara, sorry, Major, I'm going to keep bouncing because we're tight on time.
I think you want to take this one. It's real simple. It's very simple. Today, the UN ambassador said it's an open question whether the United States will participate in the Winter Olympics in South Korea. Is it an open question? Is that now in doubt?
Look, that wasn't exactly what the ambassador said. No official decision has been made on that, and we'll keep you guys posted as those decisions are made. Look, I know that the goal is to do so, but that'll be a decision made closer to time, Mara. I think that's an interagency process, but I think ultimately the president would certainly weigh in. But again, that's something that he would take into account, probably a number of the stakeholders that would be involved. Absolutely, if we felt there was an issue, that would come up.
I just have two government funding questions. First, does he want S-chip reauthorized?
I haven't had that specific conversation with him, but I do know that we want to fully fund the government. Beyond that, I'm not going to get into any more details before their meeting today.
Okay. The bipartisan leadership is coming up in a much different atmosphere than the last meeting, where he tweeted about how he didn't think a deal was possible because the Democrats were so bad on illegal immigrants pouring over the border. I'm wondering, has the president changed his mind about that? And also specifically, what was he referring to, since in a government shutdown, ICE and the Border Patrol aren't effective?
The president's still very much committed to a strong border and to a border wall, and I would imagine that's discussed at some point today. I think we all hope a deal can be reached. We hope that the Democrats will be willing to put aside partisan politics and focus on fully funding the government. Josh.
On the Hill today, Chris Wray praised the FBI and said it was, the finest law enforcement force in the world. The president said, it's in tatters and it's at its worst place in history. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Look, we don't think that there is a discrepancy. We agree with Chris Wray that FBI field agents are appreciated and respected. The president's issues are with the political leaders in the FBI under former Director Comey, particularly those that played politics with the Hillary Clinton email probe, and we don't see a discrepancy beyond that. Blake,
when he undermines...
Sorry, I'm going to hop around because we're tight on time because we got a little bit here.
He undermines the FBI and says it's in tatters. So what else fear that, that could create ramifications, that people won't trust law enforcement, that people will say,
no, and again,
why should we interact with the FBI when it's in tatters?
No, and again, the president's referring to the political leaders at the FBI, particularly those that were involved in the Hillary Clinton probe. Blake.
Thank you. Two quick ones about government shutdown. Chuck Schumer on the Senate floor said today of the president, his party controls the Senate, the House, and the presidency, speaking of Republicans rather, and he said a shutdown would fall on his shoulders. How is that not just a reflection, an accurate reflection of the political realities that Republicans control Washington at this point?
Look, they may control Washington, but this still takes some Democrats to be engaged in the process, and we hope, frankly, that Democrats will play by the Schumer rule and not hold this bill hostage by playing partisan politics, and that they'll come to the table, help fund our defense department.
Guys, let me pull up a sound on this veteran. It looks like we still have this coverage of the Pearl Harbor commemoration. Let's see if we can get some sound from these veterans.
What branch of the service?
Well, you're going to tell the guys about that. You're going over to Redskin Park, sir.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now they're playing mice off. The youngest right here. The
90? Long time.
What? How old are you, sir?
98.
90 to 99. You got a decade right here. Oh, he's the young whippersnapper of the group.
Yeah, he's the young guy.
And well, you're private to colonel, 30 years.
I'm 90.
Colonel, pleasure.
So much.
Pleasure.
Again, I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you so
Good
much.
job.
Thank you, sir.
I hope the team does that.
Thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you. Hope that kept
Thank you
warm.
for using it.
One of the Korean ladies came over during the ceremony, and took her coat off and gave it to this younger man here. That was really
Well,
nice.
I've been designated by the American Legion as the 100th year veteran for their 100th year anniversary in Paris.
Oh, really?
So So I have to live another year and a half.
You will.
The money not to lack in you. I have to live another 10 years.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, I'm very proud that they selected me.
Hello, sir. This is Mr. Kettleford, Mr. Allen.
Sir, thank you. Thank you for your service,
He's
sir.
part of the sports club with the University Club. And he was one
Give an award to the president of the Nationals. We ought to give an award to you too.
Would you be willing to speak to their club?
Absolutely.
Do you have a card? I could give it to him.
Myself, I've never felt anything but treated with the highest level of respect and been empowered to do my job, and I think that's what I've seen the president do day in and day out since we've been here and during the campaign, and so I think that's a pretty good start and a pretty good example on that front.
Places are having sessions, they're having seminars. Are you guys doing that here? Are you talking about
in recent days what people in this work environment can do? Are you taking
There are
this as
certainly
concrete?
White House policies that we are reminded of, and I think all of us expect each person to live up and to meet those policies and to not cross a line that is not only not legal, but not appropriate or not ethical. Kristen.
To follow up, we've seen Democrats forcefully call for John Conyers' resignation, Al Franken's resignation, which happened today. Do Republicans and does this president risk losing their moral authority on this issue, which is a huge issue right now, by endorsing a candidate like Roy Moore, which has now been backed by the RNC as well?
Look, I've addressed this in depth. We think that the allegations are troubling and that ultimately this is something that the people of Alabama should decide. Steve?
Why not call for him to
Yes,
drop out
Sarah.
of the race or a write-in candidate?
Was the
Sarah, is the president failing to lead at this
Hey,
critical
Kristen,
moment?
I'm going to move around to your
But
colleagues.
just a quick follow. Is he failing
was
to
the
lead on
president's
this issue?
proclamation on Jerusalem delayed because of concerns expressed by the Secretaries of Defense and State about security, that they wanted to get adequate security in place for U.S. embassies around the world?
We wanted to make sure that we had a thoughtful and responsible process, and that the decision and the components of that decision went through the full interagency process. And once that was completed, the president moved forward and took action. Steve?
The Palestinians are under the impression that the president pulled out of the peace process yesterday based on the Jerusalem decision. How do you correct that, or did he do that?
No. In fact, in the president's remarks, he said that we are as committed to the peace process as ever, and we want to continue to push forward in those conversations and those discussions. And hopefully, the ultimate goal, I think, of all those parties is to reach a peace deal, and that's something that the United States is very much committed to. We'll take one more. David?
Sarah, thank you. Given the recent revelations that at least one prosecutor on Robert Mueller's team was sending anti-Trump texts to another DOJ lawyer, and given the revelation that yet another one was congratulating Sally Yates for refusing to uphold and defend the president's travel ban, Chairman Goodlatte at the hearing this morning said that even the appearance of impropriety would devastate the FBI's reputation. So the question is, does the White House believe that the fix was in, that Robert Mueller's probe was biased from the beginning?
Look, we are fully cooperating through this process. We're going to continue to do so. As I said a few minutes ago, we certainly felt like some of the political leadership at the FBI was problematic. We're glad that Director Wray is there. We feel like he's going to clean up some of the messes left behind by his predecessor, and we look forward to this concluding soon and showing what we've been saying all along, that there was nothing to see here and certainly no collusion. The president's got an event here in a couple minutes. Just a couple of last minute notes. The president's got a event here with members of the Pearl Harbor survivors, and then we'll also have a pool spray at the top of the congressional meeting this afternoon at 3 o'clock. So we'll see you guys shortly.
His health after he appeared yesterday and appeared
I'll follow up.
Can you just on his health? How he appeared
I'll break the rules and I'll come back. I know that there were a lot of questions on that. Frankly, pretty ridiculous questions. The president's throat was dry, nothing more than that. He does have a physical scheduled for the first part of next year. The full physical that most presidents go through, that'll take place at Walter Reed, and those records will be released by the doctor following that taking place. Thanks so much, guys.
All right, guys, so we jumped right into the White House press briefing just as Sarah Sanders was answering questions actually about or related to rather sexual assault allegations on Capitol Hill, of course, related to Franken, Senator Al Franken resigning today on the Senate floor. And it sounds like she answered a few questions regarding, you know, what does this imply for the administration? Where do we go from here? And she said she's felt nothing but utmost respect. On the other hand, it was, according to him, Al Franken said it was the worst day in his political life was today when he had to announce this future resignation. So really interesting segue back into that. I think we've covered a lot of interesting topics today too. Also considering that President Trump is now going to meet with some of the Pearl Harbor veterans that we just saw that ceremony for today. So some interesting stuff today, and it kind of all blends together, which is pretty interesting. But I want to thank you guys for hanging out with us on the stream. It's been a really good one. Today I get to talk to a lot of people inside our newsroom who are experts on some of these topics, and it's been a fun one. So thank you for engaging with us, and feel free to join us again tomorrow, of course. At 11 o'clock, we'll start with some weather with Mike Thomas and then go into breaking news on Friday, December 8th. Very excited. It's almost the end of the week. So hope that I was able to answer a lot of your questions today and that you have enjoyed our coverage. We're going to keep it interesting, keep it varied for you. So do subscribe to our channel here, Fox 5 Live, in our digital newsroom. And I'm Molly Nivola, hosting here for the breaking news segments. All right, guys, we'll see you again tomorrow, and we will take it from there. All right, have a great one, guys. Leave you with a little Christmas music to get into the spirit, and make sure you log in again tomorrow. So we'll see you then.
Spokesperson Heather Nauert.